Earlier this month, I got sent out to a mysterious event in London where I played 5 hours of the new Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. They let us play through the entire first chapter of the game, and I'll tell you now, not everyone got to the end. After being sat down for a presentation on the game and what we'd be playing, I got to sit down and get to work. For those who don't know, this is the long-awaited reboot of the Armored Core franchise. It's coming on the 25th of August and will be available on PC, as well as current-gen consoles and previous-gen consoles, Switch excluded. There's a standard edition, and if you really want to splash out, the collector's edition comes with an AC statue amongst other goodies. And for the true Armored Core fans, well, the rich ones who are stacked with cash, there's a Namco Store exclusive premium edition with an even bigger statue that houses the statue from the collector's edition. Anyway, back to the game. It throws you right into the tutorial and keeps things moving at a steady pace from there. It's a fascinating mix of classic Armored Core gameplay and modern FromSoftware game design. Now, putting all my cards on the table, I've only meaningfully played Armored Cores 1 to 3, and the PSP games, of course. In fact, I was playing Armored Core 3 Portable on my way to this event. I've only dipped into later games, but I feel confident in saying that this new title is going more for the classic style approach to mission structure. It's not an open world game as many may expect, but the mission-based structure the series is known for that allows you to go out and complete a mission, then go back and tweak your Armored Core to improve its abilities, suits this style of game much better in my opinion. And there are so many options for how you can build your AC too. If you are a fan of the sheer number of options available in Soulsborne titles, then imagine that, but with guns. You can also change your loadout each time you die, albeit without access to the store to get new equipment. At first I felt like this could make things too easy, but soon I realized that when you get to the boss fights, you'll really need to change things around to work with the boss's weaknesses and strengths. Whilst the regular missions feel like a fantastic modernization of Armored Core's gameplay into a frenetic firefight, it still makes you feel as powerful as you should in a giant mech. The boss fights though are a whole different story. After blasting through the first mission, I got to the tutorial boss, which ended me a minute into the fight. I suddenly realized I needed to focus up and sliced and diced it to pieces. It's one of those Souls-like intro fights that feels like a "you must be this tall to enter" sign. It's not a real challenge, but enough that it could push some players away. Despite that though, people are definitely going to have a great time with this game. It was always giving me new toys to play with. One minute it adds in charged weapons, then energy weapons, then shields, and towards the end of Chapter 1 it adds in new leg types that completely change how you approach combat. I'm partial to the tetrapod legs myself, but I can just picture a lot of Souls diehards going for the tank legs. The biggest change to the Armored Core formula is the increased focus on movement. It makes this clear straight away by telling you that your guns automatically aim for targets in a certain area of your screen. Previous Armored Core games have included rocket boosts and short flights, but these were mostly to get around, and you could basically get through combat without ever doing more than just strafing. Here, it's all about dodging, jumping, and flying. The more often you can remain airborne, the better you're gonna do. As you'd expect when you're in the middle of a big fight and realize you haven't touched the ground in minutes and haven't taken a hit because of it, it can be really satisfying. This increased focus on movement makes you really have to reconsider attaching huge guns that do massive damage but knock you out of the air for firing them, and makes you think strategically about your energy meter in the heat of combat. In fact, you need to be thinking about these meters a lot. Up to 4 gun magazines to keep track of: health, energy, stun. It's pretty frenetic, but it never feels like it's unfair or like it's getting to be too much. Outside of the gameplay, the story is kind of generic, and I can't imagine it going anywhere truly amazing, but it doesn't have to be groundbreaking storytelling as long as it's engaging enough to stop me turning the game off between levels, and it achieves that. The end of Chapter 1 also introduces some interesting plot elements I'm really curious to see expanded in the rest of the game. The art design is very true to the franchise's atmosphere and feel. It sometimes fails to remind you that you're a giant robot as often as maybe it should, but that's hard to get mad at when you see some of the set pieces the game has to offer, where you climb aboard giant striders and drop over a cliff where a massive city is under siege. In art design as well as story, it's not reinventing the wheel, but why would it have to? The only place where I felt a little underwhelmed was in the music. Similarly to Elden Ring before it, Armored Core 6 tends to fall into some pretty generic orchestral drama that fades into the mush of standard scoring. Boss fights often alleviate this, as in Elden Ring, but in regular missions it can feel a little dampening. It's not awful as it usually fades into the background, unlike Final Fantasy XVI from earlier this year, where the soundtrack was so tonally mismatched at almost all points that it was actively distracting. Here, it's just a shame it doesn't keep the musical intrigue from its bigger moments. At a certain point, I'd beaten all the content I was allowed to play. A staff member came and tapped me on the shoulder, I checked the time, and I was already 15 minutes over the allowed time for the preview. I quickly gathered my things, checked the footage you've seen here was all okay, and I left to get the train home. But as soon as I sat down in my living room that night, I was picturing what I'd do when I got my hands on the game again. It's almost cruel. 5 hours is such a long time. I'd gotten attached to my AC, and when the game releases, I've got to start all over again. Suffice to say, this entire month I've been ravenous to play more Armored Core 6, and that energy will continue all the way until it releases on August 25th. I highly recommend this game, and from what I've seen, I can't wait to play more. Thanks to Bandai Namco and FromSoftware for letting me play the game early, and to anyone watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and tell us what games you're looking forward to and would like to see on the channel. Thanks for watching.